YouTube or email around or just sort of use as any other movie file you might find out there. I'll show you how to do that in this particular video. So what I have here in the Pavre screen here is your basic skeleton code with nothing too interesting going on. I just have an object here at 0, 0, 0, the origin. I'm giving it 5 units of velocity in the x direction, and I'm giving it an acceleration of 5 units, but the minus sign in front of the 5 means it's going to be towards the left. So where the initial launch velocity is towards the right with a 5, the acceleration is to the left with a negative 5. And so everything else is the same. We see the physics equations and so on. And I'm about to render, but I want to highlight your attention to one thing. Of course, when we start rendering this, we see all the visuals in this black screen right here. That's where all the rendering results appear. But in particular, what I want to highlight your attention to here is the folder. This is the folder that I have, say, my source code saved into. Skeleton.pav is what I'm currently editing over here. There it is right here. And there's some other files here that are unrelated. But watch what happens when I render the code now. So when I hit render, I can see my graphic action happening up in here. There's my velocity and acceleration vectors, and the object should start moving over here to the right, and it'll eventually stop and turn around because the acceleration is to the left. But more importantly for this particular video is look at down here in the folder that I'm using to work out of here, how all of these file names are being created here. Skeleton code 01, 02, 03, 04, all the way to 7 and 8 and beyond. These are auto-generated by Pavre or Megapav. Every time a frame appears, that's one of the frames of my movie, I see the resultant image file in its own particular frame appear down here. So Pavre takes the core file name in this case, which is called skeleton code, and it adds the 01, the 02, and the 03 on it, and so on and so forth as it goes. And as I just let this thing render, I can still see my action happening up here, but as I keep going, I'm going to let this go ahead and run down to 30, which is the total number of frames I told the software to render for myself here. As it keeps going there, each one of these images here is a separate frame of the movie. So of course 01 is the very first frame, then we let a little bit of DT go by and I get frame 2 and frame 3 and so on and so forth. Let's see where it's at now. It's about like a 21 down there. I'll just sort of keep going down to 30 so it'll finish. Then I'll show you how to stitch it together. So all Megapav and Pavre does is calculate the images that we want at a certain time and saves all that information into an individual image file. That's the extent of what Pavre and Megapav does with its image calculation abilities. It doesn't create the movie for us. So as this thing goes all the way down, let's see, it's almost done. It's at 26 here. Let me just let it go a few more frames, and we can see in the very top here what frame it's on. What we need to do next is we need to take all these images and put them together into a single movie file. For the purposes here, I always call that stitching these images together. So if I move down, there's my 30 frames. And if I just take a look at one, say like skeleton code 19, I'll sort of run that. And the previewer on this computer, in this case Macintosh, shows me what happened in frame 19. So we saw the object and went this way and turned around and came back. I see the velocity and the acceleration vectors on there. And it's going pretty well. So that's what I mean. That's what these individual frames are. They're the time frames that happen in the movie. Let's stitch them together now. So in order to stitch them together, you just sort of load up this program, this free one you can download here called Stitch. There's one available for both Macintosh and Windows. And all I have to do is tell it what the very first image in my sequence is going to be. I need to point to that image. In this case, it'll be skeleton code 01. So let me just click the browse button right here. And if I pull out and go to skeleton01.png, that's that first frame again. Just open that. Okay, I'm good there. Now it wants to know where should it save the movie to. And if I just hit browse on that, it's going to put it right here as a file name called movie. I can give it another name if I want or just leave it as movie right there. But in either case, it's all ready to go to create this MP4, which is a movie file. The frame right here is usually set to 10. 10 is nice, maybe 15. I'll even go up to 20. That's how many frames per second I'd like my final movie to be rendered at. I'll go ahead and keep it at 20 there. And if I just hit the stitch button, it'll sort of do something here. It says movie stitching is underway. It might take a few seconds, but it's already done. It took about a second or so to do it. And what I notice here is that I have a new file created in my folder. So here's all my images here. There's 1 and 2 and 3. There's my source code right there. But here's this new movie that's being created. So if I go down here and click this Watch Movie button here, there's my movie coming up. And if I just hit the play button, see, I see a nice smoothly animated movie now of an object that goes over to the right a little bit as it deaccelerates towards the left and turns back around the other way. There's a lot of kind of fun things you can do with it now. If I pull this slider back all the way to the beginning, if I can, rewind it back to the beginning there, yeah, I can start hitting the left and right arrow keys. I can even go through my movie frame at a time and look at the relative dynamics here. So you can see how the velocity vector is nice and big, but it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as it goes across like that. And so the point is that now, in this particular, I'll go ahead and, well, I guess I want to keep this, don't I? Hold on a second here. If I even go back to my original movie folder here and delete all of these frames that were created, just get rid of those, just to show you what I have here. Now I just have my code, all the frames are gone, but I still have this movie file right here, which I'm free to load and play all I want. So in the end, that's sort of what this video is about here, is I'm all done. I've taken all my individual frames as generated by Megapav or Pavray, use this stitch program here by selecting just the first image in the sequence and where to save the movie to, and I have a self-contained movie here in movie.mp4. This is a self-contained movie that can be played in Windows Media Player or QuickTime Pro, and or can be uploaded to YouTube for video sharing, but that's it. So I'm all done. Even if I completely quit Pavray and get rid of it altogether, even quit the stitching program, I don't need those anymore at all. I still have this one, movie.mp4, that if I double click on that, see, here comes QuickTime Pro, loads up and plays it for me. So I have my animation in a movie file. That's what the stitching program does.